Do you know that feeling when you try your absolute hardest to be perfect? To be that flawless person who always does everything right, never makes mistakes, never gets angry, and always smiles? You go through life constantly looking over your shoulder, afraid that someone will see your imperfection, your weakness, your dark side. Or perhaps you've noticed how much we're irritated by qualities in others that we absolutely can't stand in ourselves, like the person who's always late, or the one who laughs too loudly, or the one who isn't afraid to speak their mind, and we just boil with indignation. Now imagine that the key to true inner freedom and ease lies precisely in not stressing so much about it. Yes, it sounds strange, doesn't it? As if I'm suggesting you just throw up your hands at your flaws and become an irresponsible slacker. But no, that's not it at all. So, what is this strange mechanism within us that makes us hide our true selves and then get annoyed at others for displaying what we hide? And how can understanding this mechanism suddenly transform our lives into something much calmer and even more joyful? Let's delve deeper. The great Carl Jung, one of the fathers of depth psychology, spoke of the shadow. This isn't something mystical or frightening, but simply all those parts of our personality that we, for some reason, decided to tuck away. All our inconvenient qualities, laziness, aggression, envy, jealousy, the occasional desire to be selfish, fear, foolishness, we repress them because society or we ourselves have decided they are bad and wrong. And this repressed shadow doesn't just disappear. It lives within us, constantly demanding attention, and sometimes it breaks through in the most unexpected ways, through irritation at others, through inexplicable emotional outbursts, through an inner struggle that drains all our energy. And this is where it gets interesting. Jung asserted that accepting your shadow, not fighting it, but accepting it, is not a weakness, but an incredible strength. It's the path to that inner freedom and what can be called healthy detachment. When you stop expending an enormous amount of energy trying to appear perfect, when you give yourself permission to be imperfect, you suddenly discover that life becomes wonderfully easy. You stop fearing judgment. You stop constantly being on edge. This isn't about permissiveness. It's about a deep inner reconciliation with yourself that frees up vast resources for creativity and joy. To understand how this works and finally stop wasting your immense resources on self-struggle, we don't need complex theories. A simple story, one I think everyone is familiar with, will suffice. Imagine you're sitting in a movie theater. The lights dim and the long-awaited film begins on screen, but what's this? The image is blurry with unpleasant smudges, and you start complaining, what terrible quality, what a camera operator. The projector must be old and dirty, horrible. You get angry at the movie, at the theater, at the whole world because the picture is simply unbearable. Then someone next to you, perhaps your friend or just an observant neighbor, quietly says, "Excuse me, could you wipe your glasses?" There's a huge greasy smudge on them. And you, a little embarrassed, take off your glasses, wipe them with your sleeve, put them back on, and voila. The image becomes perfect, clear, bright. The movie is wonderful. The projector works perfectly. And then you realize the problem wasn't with the movie or the projector. It wasn't what was on the screen, but what was right in front of your eyes. Though you didn't notice it because it was yours. It was on your glasses, not on someone else's screen. So to put it simply, the rule is this. What we hide within ourselves, what we consider wrong, shameful, or bad in ourselves, we begin to see, exaggerate, and detest in other people. That's the whole secret. That's the key mechanism. Let's remember it because it's the simple key that opens the doors to incredible inner freedom and ease. So we hold this simple yet powerful key in our hands. And now, with it in our pocket, let's return to where we started, to the feeling of inner freedom and that healthy detachment Jung spoke of. Remember how it annoys us when someone is constantly late, or that person who always interrupts or laughs too loudly without inhibition? And we think, how can they be like that? So rude. So irresponsible. We just boil with indignation, and it feels like the world is unfair and people around us are a complete disappointment. Now let's apply our key, the one we found by wiping our glasses. If we get so irritated by someone's lack of punctuality, isn't it because deep down we ourselves might be tired of our own over-responsibility, of constantly needing to be first, most organized, most dependable? What if, beneath this mask of the ideal performer, there's a tiny, almost imperceptible desire to sometimes allow ourselves to relax, be late, just breathe out and not rush headlong. We've driven this part of ourselves into the shadow because good people don't do that. And this small, suppressed part of us, this inner slacker whom we've locked away in the dungeon of our shadow, begins to shout through other people. When we see someone late, it's not just another person's lateness. It's as if our own suppressed desire for freedom from rules, or even our own hidden laziness, is projected onto the screen, and we shout, "Ugh, what a dirty screen, what a terrible movie." But the problem, as we remember, wasn't with the movie. And then it dawned on me, literally like a flash. It's not at all about that person being late or laughing loudly or saying something foolish. It's not about their rudeness or irresponsibility, at least not only about that. It's about my own unconscious, deeply hidden fear or desire to exhibit that very same trait. It's about my fear of looking into this mirror that another person holds up for me. Do you understand? What we so fiercely criticize in others, what we so desperately try to fix or condemn, is often just a reflection of those parts of ourselves that we don't accept, that we consider bad and hide away. If you hate greed in others, ask yourself, is there a fear within me of being generous when it's inconvenient? Or envy of someone else's wealth? If someone else's foolishness drives you crazy, perhaps you yourself are afraid of appearing unintelligent or making a mistake. And when you start to see this, when you understand that the dirty smudge on the screen isn't on the screen but on your own glasses, then a miracle happens. You stop expending an enormous amount of energy fighting with other people and essentially with yourself. Healthy detachment isn't about becoming irresponsible and starting to be late yourself. No, it's about ceasing to react emotionally to others' lateness, because you've accepted this trait as part of human nature, including your own. You give yourself permission for imperfection. You recognize that you also have laziness and selfishness and foolishness and aggression, just like everything else. And then others' imperfections stop triggering you. They just exist. And you see them, but they no longer drain your energy or cause anger or irritation. It's an immense relief. It's like shedding heavy armor and finally breathing freely. You're no longer at war with yourself, and therefore no longer at war with the world. And this is the first, most important step towards that ease and inner freedom we're talking about. And so you feel this relief, this freedom. You've stopped being triggered by others' lateness, their loudness, their foolishness. But then time passes, and bang, the same story again. Someone annoys you again. You're boiling with indignation again. Why? Why does it keep happening like some kind of Groundhog Day? Why do we, having seemingly understood the mechanism, still keep making the same mistakes? It's simple. This mechanism works in a loop, and each step we take in this loop only reinforces it. Let's see how this happens. Imagine you wiped your glasses, and the world became clear. You breathed a sigh of relief. But what happens next if you haven't accepted the fact that your glasses can get smudges? That you're not perfect? That you can be careless, or forgetful, or lazy? If you haven't given yourself permission for these qualities, then the next time a smudge appears, you'll again look for it on the screen, and the cycle will repeat. Here's what this vicious circle, this Groundhog Day of our shadow, looks like. Step 1. You hide something bad about yourself. You might feel that being lazy is terrible, being greedy is shameful, and being foolish is unacceptable. Or perhaps you believe you shouldn't show aggression, shouldn't be selfish, shouldn't make mistakes. And you try your hardest to be good, to be perfect. You stuff these inconvenient parts of your personality deep, deep into the shadow, pretending they don't exist. You spend a lot of energy creating a flawless facade. This isn't just repression, it's an active denial of a part of yourself. And the more you deny, the more energy it takes to keep that part imprisoned. Step 2. You find this bad trait in someone else and loudly condemn it. And so you meet someone who you feel exhibits precisely the trait you so carefully suppressed in yourself. They're late, they're greedy, they laugh loudly, or they speak their mind, and you explode. You're overcome with righteous anger, indignation, irritation. You start to condemn them, criticize them, gossip about them. How dare they? How rude? How irresponsible? You think, and perhaps even say aloud. You project your own suppressed trait onto another person, and then you attack it in them. Remember the glasses? You're shouting at the dirty screen, not seeing the smudge on your own lenses. Step 3, you feel better and hide it even deeper within yourself. And what happens after you've condemned someone? For a moment, just a brief moment, you feel better. You think, I'm not like that, I'm great, I'm responsible, I'm generous, I'm smart. This is a false sense of superiority, a feeling of your own rightness compared to the wrong other. And this fleeting, deceptive relief only strengthens your conviction that that very trait needs to be hidden even deeper, because if you bring it out, you'll become as bad as the person you just condemned, and you hide it even more fiercely, expending even more energy. The circle is closed and it can spin forever. We ourselves, unconsciously, force ourselves to live out the same drama instead of simply accepting ourselves. Until we break this cycle, we will constantly waste immense resources fighting phantoms that are, in reality, merely reflections of ourselves. And so, when you start to see how this vicious circle works, how we trap ourselves in it, suddenly it's as if a veil lifts from your eyes. You start to notice this pattern everywhere, in everyday life, in the news, in friends' conversations, in politics, anywhere. And it's not just a theory, it becomes your new way of looking at the world. You see someone online furiously criticizing another's lifestyle, values, mistakes, and you think, oh, they're just looking at their own glasses. Or you recall how a colleague, in your opinion, was too slow and inefficient, driving you crazy. And then you catch yourself thinking, isn't it because it bothered me so much that I don't allow myself to make mistakes, to slow down, that I constantly push myself forward, afraid of appearing ineffective and suppress my own need for rest? Same story. Exactly. Or consider this. How often are we irritated by people who, in our opinion, talk too much about themselves, boast, flaunt their achievements? How self-absorbed, what an egoist, we grumble to ourselves. But if we apply our key, the one about the glasses, it might turn out that it's our own deeply hidden need for recognition, for being noticed, praised, appreciated. Perhaps we're afraid of appearing vain or selfish, and so we've locked that part of ourselves in the shadow, and it's screaming through others. Or remember how people who, in our view, are too naive, too trusting, or conversely, too cynical and believe in nothing, annoy us. Isn't it because it gets to us so much that we ourselves are afraid to show naivety lest we be deceived, or conversely afraid of being too cynical lest we lose our humanity? Do you see how it works? As soon as you start to see this mechanism, it becomes obvious. And it's not about justifying others' behavior, no. It's about stopping wasting your energy fighting windmills, stopping shifting responsibility for your inner conflicts onto other people. It's an enormous, immense relief, because when you realize that the dirty smudge on the screen isn't on the screen but on your own glasses, you stop being angry at the movie. You just wipe your glasses. And the world around you, the people around you, they remain as they are, but your attitude towards them, your emotional reaction, changes fundamentally. They stop being your triggers, they just are. And this allows you to be truly free, not from the world, but from your own inner prison. You see how this mechanism works everywhere, how it manifests in each of us, in every reaction we have to others. But wait, what if these aren't just our personal hang-ups? What if this is something much, much larger? What if we unknowingly are participating in a grand, universal game, or perhaps even some kind of cosmic experiment? Remember, we said that what annoys us in others is our own carefully hidden shadow, which we project onto the screen of the world. Well, it turns out that this great struggle, these endless arguments online, these political battles, these family squabbles, this eternal dissatisfaction with others, it's actually not what it seems. It's not a war of good versus evil, not a battle of right versus wrong. No, it's just a huge nationwide or even global psychotherapy session. The only problem is, in this session, no one wants to admit their problems. Everyone looks at the screen and shouts, "What a dirty movie. What a terrible director." And the psychotherapist, which is life itself, quietly, subtly suggests, "Excuse me, could you wipe your glasses? There's a huge greasy smudge on them." And we sit there, stubbornly refusing to wipe our lenses, because then we'd have to admit, this is my problem. This is my laziness, my envy, my aggression, my foolishness that I don't want to see in myself. We are so afraid to admit to ourselves that we possess greed, cowardice, hypocrisy, the desire to be selfish and simply to be clueless sometimes. We so diligently construct a facade of an ideal person that any crack in it causes panic. And it's easier, much easier, to point a finger at someone else. They're bad. They're not like me. Because as long as we're busy condemning others, we don't have to look at ourselves. As long as we're fighting the dirty screen, we feel clean and righteous. It's a method of self-deception, a grand spectacle we put on for ourselves and for the whole world too. And here lies the main irony. This spectacle, this constant fight with phantoms, drains an enormous amount of energy from us. Energy we could direct towards creation, towards creativity, towards genuine relationships, towards joy. Instead, we flush it down the toilet of endless resentments, irritations, and condemnations. We build a prison for ourselves out of others' flaws, which are actually our own. And the key to this prison has always been in our pocket. That very key, the recognition and acceptance of our shadow. So what does that mean? It means that every time we feel righteous anger, when something in another person unbearably annoys us, it's not a reason for war, it's an invitation. An invitation to look within ourselves, an invitation to finally wipe our glasses. Because as soon as you do, you'll discover that the world isn't so bad after all, and people aren't so terrible. And most importantly, you'll realize that you yourself are much freer and lighter than you thought. And this is not just a theory, this is your personal escape from the global Groundhog Day. And so we see this picture, a grand, human-wide spectacle where everyone is shouting at the dirty screen, unwilling to wipe their own glasses. A beautiful theory, isn't it? Far-reaching, but you're sitting there watching and probably thinking, okay, I get it. But how does this apply to me? Personally, how will my life change with this knowledge? Tomorrow morning, I'll wake up and what? That same colleague will still annoy me, the same news, the same lack of punctuality. And that's an absolutely valid question because the price of this endless Groundhog Day isn't out there in abstract debates. It's within each of us. It's a constant background feeling of anxiety. It's the inability to be truly relaxed, to be truly ourselves. It's living in a state of chronic tension, constantly on guard, afraid that someone will see your imperfection, your bad part, and you hide it, stuff it deeper, expending immense energy to do so. Imagine how much energy goes into this masquerade, into appearing always strong, always smart, always kind, always right. Every time you see a trait in another person that you've suppressed in yourself, you're not just getting irritated. It's as if you're hitting your own wound. You're afraid that this trait will surface from within you, and then you'll be judged, rejected. And this constant anticipation of judgment, this inner censorship, this war with yourself, it drains all your vitality. You stop trusting others because they constantly mirror what you don't want to see in yourself. You can't be genuine because sincerity seems too dangerous. And in the end, even among loved ones, you might feel lonely because you can't be real. You live in a world where essentially everyone around you seems like a potential enemy or source of irritation simply because you're afraid to face the main enemy, yourself. That part of yourself that you've declared bad. And this is where it gets most interesting. If you've realized that the problem isn't with the screen, but with the glasses, what's next? Next is both the simplest and the most challenging thing simultaneously. Start wiping those glasses. This is precisely the acceptance of your shadow. It's not about fighting. It's about acknowledging, yes, I have laziness and selfishness and the desire to sometimes be wrong and fear and even aggression. And that's normal. It's part of human nature. It's part of me. You see, when you stop declaring war on your own inconvenient qualities, they stop being monsters. They stop draining your energy. They simply become qualities, like all the others. And this gives that incredible relief. It's like shedding heavy armor that you've worn for years to protect yourself from phantoms you yourself created. And when you shed that armor, you suddenly discover that the world around you isn't so scary. And people, they're just people with their own smudges on their glasses. But those smudges no longer trigger you. This is Jung's healthy detachment. It's not about becoming irresponsible and starting to be late or rude or greedy. No, it's about ceasing to react emotionally to others' lateness, their rudeness, their greed. Why? Because you've accepted these traits as part of human nature, including your own. You've given yourself permission for imperfection And when you do this, others' imperfection ceases to be a threat to you. It stops draining your energy, causing anger or irritation. It just is. And you see it, but it no longer controls your emotions. This is an enormous, immense relief. It's not just a theory. It's your personal deep breath after long years of suffocation. You're no longer at war with yourself and therefore no longer at war with the world. And this inner freedom, this lightness, it becomes your new reality. This is precisely what liberates the immense energy you used to spend on struggle. Energy that can now be directed towards creation, towards relationships, towards genuine joy. It's not just an escape from Groundhog Day. It's the beginning of a completely new, more fulfilling life. And so when we talk about a completely new, more fulfilling life, about freedom and lightness, it sounds almost like a fairy tale, doesn't it? But really, the main paradox is that the key to this lightness lies not in fighting your flaws, but in accepting them. Not in becoming perfect, but in allowing yourself to be imperfect. It's not about becoming bad. It's about stopping spending your whole life trying to ethesima good. Do you understand? That's the whole point. Now let's set all theories aside. Let's turn off our brains for a second and just feel. Let's be honest. Today, right now. In whom or what did you see your reflection? What or who truly got under your skin, irked you, caused a wave of irritation? Maybe it was a driver on the road, or a colleague who boasted too much, or perhaps you read the news and some other person's viewpoint just ignited something within you. Remember that feeling, that anger, that indignation, that desire to condemn. And now, with our new key in hand, ask yourself, what within myself do I not accept, that I react so strongly to it in another? Is it because someone else's audacity annoys me so much that I don't allow myself to be bolder, to assert myself? Is it because boasting irritates me that I'm afraid to show my achievements, afraid of appearing vain and therefore suppress my own need for recognition? This is the very moment when theory becomes practice. When you stop looking at the world as a set of problems to be fixed and start seeing it as a mirror that shows you not others' flaws, but your own hidden treasures, because the shadow isn't just bad qualities. It's also our unrealized courage and our suppressed creativity and our capacity for spontaneity, for joy, for ease, all that we've hidden, fearing judgment. And when you accept the shadow, you accept not only laziness, but also your immense need for rest. Not only aggression, but also your ability to protect yourself. Not only selfishness, but also your right to your own desires and needs. And on that note, I want to say a huge thank you for being with me, for listening to the end. It's very valuable to me, because this isn't just a lecture, it's a conversation. And I'm very interested in what you think about it. How does it resonate with you personally? Write in the comments. No fancy words, just your feelings, your thoughts. It truly is the most interesting conversation. And if this video, this conversation of ours resonated with you and you want more such honest, deep, yet understandable conversations, then you know what to do. Like subscribe. It's the best way to say thank you and help this channel grow. Warmly. Until next time.